Films in Focus with David Sterritt is underwritten by The Movie House, your destination for first-run Hollywood and independent movies, and a digital portal to the Met Opera, National Theatre Live, and special events worldwide in Millerton, New York, and on the web, themoviehouse.net.
David Sterritt is the editor-in-chief of the Quarterly Review of Film and Video, contributing writer at Cineast, film professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, and Robin Hood Radio's very own critic. He joins us weekly. The films: The Whistlers, Heimat is a Space in Time, and Sorry We Missed You. And once again, you've given me a little novella to begin with, but I appreciate that.
That's right. Well, it was a pleasure. I suppose that one could, in fact, construct a narrative out of these three titles.
With ease.
With ease. Well, you know, it's a funny time. Here's a newsflash that we are living through. Not a funny time, a peculiar time that we are living through, because so many things are closed up because of the coronavirus, and that certainly includes movie theaters pretty much everywhere, I guess, at least in the United States, and I know a lot outside the United States too. So the question is, are the movies going to simply stop existing? And the answer is no, because one of the things that has been happening is that some of the theaters, and it doesn't tend to be the big commercial theaters. It tends to be the sort of art theaters that show the independent movies, the sort of small, low-budget movies, the international movies, have started to have virtual exhibition. They are showing things online, and one can, for a fee, connect and see a movie by streaming. Which is a terrific thing. I'm an enormous fan of this. And in fact, some movies which I have been waiting to come out near me, I've been able to see them sooner than I otherwise would have because they have been streaming one place or another. I will mention a handful of places that are doing some streaming of movies just because they're of interest to me. One is the Movie House in Millerton, New York, which is streaming some movies right now, including the first one I'm going to talk about right now, Sorry We Missed You. Excuse me, The Whistlers is what I meant to say. Anyway, also the Parkway Theater in Baltimore is streaming movies. That's actually a building where I teach my classes when it's open, and now my classes are online. The Parkway is closed up as a movie theater, but they are streaming some movies, including The Whistlers as well. And I'll mention also Film Forum in New York, which is a terrific resource. It's a marvelous place, and I'm just absolutely delighted that they are streaming things as well, and because these are all good places, and these are movies that they would have been showing. For example, I just mentioned the Movie House in Millerton, New York. Both The Whistlers and Sorry We Missed You are streaming there. And when you stream a movie from these various places, and there are lots and lots of other places too, but when you stream it, you are also supporting the movie theater itself. So I totally recommend this, and I certainly recommend it in the case of the movies I'm going to talk about today, which are good movies. And let's start off by saying some things about The Whistlers. The Whistlers is a Romanian production. It's actually an international co-production in terms of where the financing came from, but it's primarily a Romanian movie, and it was directed by a Romanian director, an extremely talented one named Corneliu Porumboiu. Now, that may sound a bit obscure, a Romanian movie. Who ever heard of a Romanian movie? Actually, Romania, for quite a few years now, has been having a terrific sort of new wave. There's a new wave of Romanian cinema, and any number of excellent movies have been coming out of Romania. And this is, I'm not going to say it's a brilliant movie or anything like that, not a masterpiece, but it's a really good film. And it's a lot of fun because it's a real sort of a genre film, but it blends various genres. So The Whistlers takes place in the Canary Islands. Doesn't that make sense? That's where most of it takes place, at least. And the main character is a man named Cristi, who is a Romanian cop. And he is also he was involved with the Romanian mafia, and he was a whistleblower. So you see, whistling just courses all the way through this movie. And he now is brought off to the Canary Islands, one of them called La Gomera, which apparently means the Whistlers. And he is brought there. He is kidnapped and brought there by some cops. And there he is told that he is forced to learn a new language, a sort of it's a language that operates in code. He is told early on that it's like Morse code, so that he can get across messages to these mobsters to help them to get one of their people out of prison. So that sounds a little bit complicated. And the movie does go back and forth between Romania and the Canary Islands and so forth, but it's not complicated at all where you're watching it. It has to do with an enormous stash of millions and millions of euros that are hidden in a mattress. And these crooks are trying to get a hold of this, and he is also under surveillance by the cops for whom he has been working. So he is, in other words, he is under the thumb of both the cops and the crooks. So I mentioned this coded language that he has to learn, and the coded language is a language entirely of whistling. And he has to learn the proper way of whistling, and then he has to learn the code so that he can communicate. And the theory is, at least, that when you are communicating some message to others who are hidden around in the area, anybody who isn't supposed to be listening will simply think that it is the birds tweeting. So that is why it is called The Whistlers. It is called The Whistlers because it takes place in the Canary Islands, because it has a whole lot of whistling in it, this coded whistling language, and there are other reasons too. So anyway, this movie is on one level. First of all, it's very gorgeous to look at. It takes place partly in the Canary Islands, a lot of very scenic vistas. Also, it is sort of a film noir. It's in very glowing color. It's a beautiful movie to look at, but it has a kind of a film noir plot with this guy, Christy, who is being manipulated by the cops and the crooks at the same time and in very different ways. And it's a romance because there are some beautiful women coursing through the story who has various designs on various different characters. So The Whistlers is primarily a crime movie, also a kind of a glowing full-color film noir type movie, and also it's almost a comedy in some ways. This whole idea of the whistling is kind of ridiculous, and some of the whistling sounds kind of ridiculous, and there are some amusing moments that happen with the whistling along the way. And there's also some violent movies that take place because, again, this is in large measure a kind of a cops and crooks movie. So it's a lot of fun, and again, for people who are not familiar with this marvelous wave of Romanian cinema that's been coming out in the past few years, The Whistlers would be a really painless way into it. It's a very entertaining and diverting movie. And again, you can stream it through various services. Check it out on the internet. One place is the Movie House, another place is the Parkway in Baltimore. But I'm not in New York at the moment, and I streamed something from Film Forum in New York just recently. So it's a marvelous opportunity for those of us who want to see movies that might not be playing near you that now are available near you, and you don't have to wait till they come out on the big streaming services. You can find them in these other ways as well at the moment. So I'm finding a bright side in these present lockdown circumstances that we're all in. Turning to our second movie, Heimat is a Space in Time. This is a movie which actually is streaming, I'm sure, by other places too, but one place is via Anthology Film Archives, which is, when I was in New York, I used to write about it with some frequency, and I used to call it the world headquarters for experimental film. Anthology is a place that deals in the really, really esoteric, but very often very brilliant filmmaking that is not going to play ever in a theater near you. And Heimat is a Space in Time would probably not play in a theater near you, but it's really quite a remarkable movie. It was in the New York Film Festival not too long ago. It was in the Toronto Film Festival. It's been in a lot of film festivals, and it has developed a really major reputation. And again, it's the kind of movie that would not be streaming at a theater near anyone, being released by Icarus Films, however, and one can find it streaming right now through Anthology Film Archives in New York. Go there on the web, and you'll also be supporting that marvelous institution. So what is Heimat is a Space in Time with that strange title? Well, it is a documentary, and I will warn you right now, it's a documentary that is well over 3.5 hours long. Very, very long movie. And it is really, really serious. It was made by a German filmmaker named Thomas Heise. And his family has been in Germany for a very, very long time. And what this documentary does is trace the life of various family members of his in Germany, going back from the First World War era right up through the Second World War, the Nazi era, and then the communist East German era, and finally the fall of the Berlin Wall. And all of this is covered through notes and letters and various communications shared within his family that are read on the soundtrack and occasionally shown on the screen. And most of the movie is Heise himself reading these letters from his grandparents, from his parents, from others involved with them, and so forth, while we see on the screen documentary evidence from the time, mostly photographs, but also letters, notes, things like that. At one point, for a very long time, just the names of people who were slated for deportation just scroll by on the screen, and we just see these names of all these people who were deported off to the death camps and probably never seen again by anybody, just scrolling by on the screen. And then other parts of the movie, larger parts of the movie, we see photographs again, we see bits of written evidence and so forth, and all the time we are hearing these notes and letters being read by Heise on the soundtrack from members of his own family. It's the kind of movie that I sometimes call an intimate epic. It's an epic because it's long and because it's extremely huge in what it deals with, this long era, decades and decades and decades of German history. From the Nazis through the communists through the democratic era that we're in now. But it's also intimate because it deals entirely with members of Heise's own family and other people like them who suffered in so many ways. His parents were a mixed Gentile-Jewish couple. And the fact that it is Heise's own relatives that the movie focuses on gives us this sense of intimacy, this sense of real caring and real compassion. So Heimat is a Space and Time is a movie for serious moviegoers who want to see a really serious film about the most serious of subjects, but I found it's very long, but I found it quite riveting, and it's a great movie to be able to watch in the intimacy of one's own space by streaming it. And finally, Sorry We Missed You. Sorry We Missed You is a movie I am not sorry to talk about. This is my favorite of the three movies I'm talking about today, and it just knocked me for a loop. I thought it was magnificent. It was directed by Ken Loach. He is a British filmmaker who has been operating for many years, and he is a filmmaker with a very powerful, strong, and unstoppable social conscience. His movies almost always deal with social, cultural, political subjects with a very great sympathy for the underdog. And I think Sorry We Missed You is as great a film as he has ever made. And that is quite a statement because he's been making important movies for a very long time. It is also a movie which I just found packs an emotional wallop, which, well, I just found it really powerful. So, Sorry We Missed You is about a guy named Ricky. And at the very beginning of the movie, he's been out of work for a while. This is all in England, up in the north of England. And he takes a new job with a delivery company. And it's one of these deals where it's sort of the gig economy. He's going to be a franchisee. He's got to have his own van, and then he's going to do deliveries for this company, which sounds like he's going to have some independence. And that's one of the reasons why he thinks this job might be a good one for him. But it turns out that he has to follow all these rules, and everything is followed by this little electronic device that he has to carry around. So his every move is tracked. And so he gets into this, and he works really hard. He's a very conscientious guy, Ricky is. And he works as hard as he can because he has a family to support. He has a wife who also has a job as a caretaker. Her job is going around from place to place and looking after really old people who can't look after themselves. She goes to a home, to an apartment. She goes to a place, takes care of the person, changes diapers, things like that, and then moves on to the next one. And in order for Ricky to be able to afford to get his van that he needs for his new job, they have to sell her car, which means that she goes around to these different places where she cares for these elderly people. She's got to now do it by bus. So life is difficult for both of them. And they have a couple of kids. One is a daughter who is sort of on the verge of adolescence, and the other is a teenage boy who, as teenage boys often will, has been getting into real trouble, skipping school. He's into graffiti with his buddies. So there are real troubles there too. So this movie is the story of Ricky and also of his wife, Abby, but also of their children. And it's about the very hard life they live. And the suspense really grows as we see especially Ricky balancing the challenges of this new demanding job with the challenges in his family that keep piling up one thing after another. So That's what's it about. Now, on one level, you can see this movie, Sorry We Missed You. And by the way, you can see where the title comes from. He's always leaving these little notices for people who aren't home when he gets there with their delivery. But on one level, it's a story about, you could say it's about the gig economy. It's definitely about how in today's economy, people can have a really, really hard time making ends meet. And sometimes they think they're going to have independence when they're not having independence at all. And it's also, and this is the part of the movie that got to me the most emotionally, so much a family story. And I found the family elements of it just so poignant and so powerful. And by the end of it, I had tears in my eyes, and I just found it an astonishing movie. Brilliantly acted, marvelously written by Paul Laverty, who did the screenplay, and directed with extraordinary sensitivity by Ken Loach, a marvelous filmmaker who at the moment is at the peak of his powers. So I highly recommend Sorry We Missed You. It's a terrific movie. It's available by streaming from various sources. Seek it out. You won't regret it. And so that is my streaming story this week, Joe.
For which we thank you as ever, David Sterritt. Films in Focus, the films The Whistlers, Heimat is a Space in Time, and Sorry We Missed You.